Your mind is not broken, it is overloaded. And that is a completely different problem with a completely different solution. Most people spend years believing they are scattered, unfocused, or just bad at thinking clearly. They try planners, apps, meditation routines, productivity systems, and still, at the end of the day, the noise is back. The same thoughts circling, the same paralysis. Here is what nobody told you. A cluttered mind is not a character flaw. It is what happens when nobody ever taught you how to be the mediator of your own thoughts. And once you understand what that actually means, everything changes. But before we get there, one of the 4 techniques I'm going to share with you today is going to seem completely pointless when you first hear it. And it is exactly that one that creates the most dramatic shift. Stay with me. The mind that nobody taught you to run. Think about what your mind is actually doing right now. Not the thought you are aware of. The background noise. The unfinished task you remembered 3 hours ago and pushed aside. The decision you have been postponing for a week. The thing someone said to you yesterday that you have not fully processed yet. The plan that is not quite a plan, just an idea floating in a loop, returning every few hours, taking up space without ever resolving. All of that is running simultaneously. And the brain was never designed to hold it all in active memory without consequence. When everything feels urgent, the mind does not prioritize. It freezes. Not because you are weak, because the system is overloaded. The ancient philosophers understood this long before neuroscience had the language for it. Socrates argued that a life without self-examination is not worth living. What he meant practically, what he was pointing at, is that when we do not stop to question our own thoughts, we become prisoners of our own internal noise. We react to whatever is loudest. We mistake volume for importance. The question Socrates would have you ask is this: is this thought useful right now, or is it just noise? That single question is the beginning of the whole system. The 3 forces, fighting inside your head. Plato described the human mind as 3 distinct forces in constant tension with each other. Reason, emotion, desire. Reason knows what makes sense. Emotion responds to what is happening right now, often loudly, often urgently, often inaccurately. Desire pulls toward what seems easy, comfortable, or immediately satisfying. A well-functioning mind is one where reason leads, not by suppressing emotion or desire, but by giving each one its proper place. Here is what this looks like in practice. You need to make a decision, but emotion is screaming that this is dangerous, unfair, or too hard. And desire is quietly suggesting that maybe you should just wait one more day. And reason, the only voice that actually has the information, can barely be heard over the other 2. This is not weakness. This is what happens when you have not organized the conversation happening inside your own head. When you learn to pause and ask, is this feeling telling me something real, or is it telling me I am tired? Is this desire pointing me towards something meaningful, or towards something that just feels easier right now? The fog begins to clear. Not because the problems disappear, because you can finally see them accurately. The trap of the 2 extremes. Aristotle spent his life studying what separates people who act well from people who spiral. His answer was not intelligence, not talent. It was the ability to find the middle path between 2 destructive extremes. You have felt both ends of this. The days when you think so much that you never act. When the analysis loops back on itself until the window closes and you are still sitting with a blank page. And the opposite, the days when you act without thinking at all and spend the next week managing the consequences. Both feel like failure. Both are actually the same problem, a mind that has not been taught to regulate the weight it assigns to its own thoughts. Organizing your thoughts is not about thinking more. It is not about thinking less. It is about thinking the right amount, enough to reach clarity, not so much that you paralyze, enough to act, not so fast that you regret. The goal is not a perfect mind. The goal is a functional one, the habit of an emperor. Marcus Aurelius ran the Roman Empire, one of the most complex administrative systems in human history. Millions of people, constant military decisions, political pressures from every direction, and every single day he wrote. Not for publication, not for posterity, though what he wrote eventually became one of the most read books in history. He wrote for himself, to process, to organize, to separate what was within his control from what was not, to identify which thoughts were worth acting on and which were just the mental weather passing through. He was not the most powerful man in the Western world despite this habit. He was effective because of it. Writing was not a productivity technique for Marcus Aurelius. It was a cognitive tool, a way of externalizing the contents of an overloaded mind so that reason could finally look at them clearly, instead of just feeling their weight from the inside. This matters because of what happens inside the brain when you write. When a thought stays in your head, your mind treats it as unresolved. It keeps it active. It loops back to it. It assigns it emotional weight every time it surfaces. The thought feels bigger than it is because you are experiencing it from the inside, without perspective. The moment you write it down, or speak it out loud or record it, something shifts. The brain releases the thought from active holding. You are no longer experiencing it. You are looking at it. And what looked enormous from the inside often looks manageable from the outside. This is the technique that seems pointless. Writing things down, talking to yourself out loud, recording a voice message to no one. It looks trivial, and it is the one that changes everything. The 4-step system. Here is the practical framework built from everything we have covered. Step 1. Is this thought important, or is it noise? Before you do anything else, ask. Most of what circulates in an overloaded mind is not a problem to be solved. It is static, worry that has no object, plans that are not yet plans, thoughts that feel urgent because of how long they have been in the queue, not because of their actual priority. You do not need to engage with every thought. You need to develop the habit of filtering at the door. Step 2. Classify what remains. Once you have identified a thought worth keeping, place it. Is this something to resolve now? Something to plan for a specific future date? Something to simply acknowledge and release? The act of classification alone removes the weight of ambiguity. The mind loops on unclassified things. It settles when things have a place. Step 3. Check your calibration. Are you giving this thought the right amount of weight? Not too much, which leads to paralysis. Not too little, which leads to avoidance of something that actually matters. This is where Aristotle's middle path becomes practical. Not philosophical, not abstract. Practical. You are asking, am I exaggerating this, or am I minimizing something that genuinely needs my attention? Step 4. Externalize. Take whatever is left and get it out of your head. Write it. Say it out loud. Record it. Send yourself a voice memo. The format does not matter. The exit matters. The goal is not a beautiful journal. The goal is an empty buffer. A mind that is not carrying what it does not need to carry, so that when something actually requires your full attention, there is space for it. What it looks like in real life. You wake up on a Tuesday with 3 things weighing on you simultaneously. A payment that is overdue, a piece of work that needs to be delivered, a decision about a new project that has been sitting unresolved for 2 weeks. Left unorganized, these 3 things do not feel like 3 things. They feel like one enormous, shapeless pressure. And that pressure produces a very specific kind of paralysis, not because the tasks are impossible, but because the mind cannot find the edge of any of them. Now, apply the system. The payment takes 10 minutes. It is not a problem. It is a task. You classify it, you schedule it, You remove it from active memory. The work can be broken into stages. It does not need to happen all at once. You identify the first step only, which is the only step the mind needs to hold. The new project decision does not need to happen today. You assign it a specific date, not soon, not eventually, a date, and your mind stops looping on it. Nothing has been solved. The payment is still due. The work is still in progress. The decision is still pending. But the weight is gone, because the weight was never the tasks. It was the chaos of holding all of them in the same unorganized mental space, with no triage, no classification, no exit. This is what it means to be the mediator of your own mind. Not to control everything, not to eliminate uncertainty. To give each thought its proper weight, its proper time, and its proper place. The thing nobody says about mental clarity. When your mind is clear, you do not just think better. You sleep better because the mind stops processing unresolved loops at 2 a.m. You communicate better because what comes out of your mouth is a reflection of what is organized inside your head. You relate better because you are no longer projecting the noise of your own mental overload onto the people around you. Think of your mind as an assembly with hundreds of voices all speaking at once. Without a mediator, nothing is heard. Every voice just competes with every other voice. The loudest ones win, and the loudest are almost never the most important. The moment a mediator steps in, each voice gets its turn, each perspective is heard in sequence, and decisions emerge from clarity instead of from noise. That mediator is not a system. It is not an app. It is not a morning routine. It is you, learning to run the assembly that has always been yours. Order is not a cage. Order is the thing that makes everything else possible. It is the structure inside which action becomes clean, communication becomes precise, and rest becomes actual rest. The mind you have always wanted is not a different mind. It is this one, organized. Start with one thought right now. Not all of them. 1. Ask if it is important or noise. Write down the answer. That is the first step. And once you take it, the rest of the system is just repetition.